Don't forget to subscribe to Basement Tales. Just go on Apple, iTunes, or wherever you get your podcasts and hit that subscribe button. We release a podcast every Thursday. That way you'll be sure not to miss an episode. Welcome to Basement Tales with Sam Jackman, Charlie Einsman, Ed Grass, and Sandra Delancey. We have fun telling crazy but true stories about turning the worst possible property disasters into bags of money. Along the way, we'll pass along some important lessons to help you make cash on real estate. Sam and Charlie walked away from cubicle hell 25 years ago. Starting with no property, they created their own Clear Sky group of companies, sold hundreds of houses, bought dozens of rentals, and made millions in hard money loans. I'm Ed, a big firm litigator until muscular dystrophy made me find a hobby other than suing people. I miss it. Sandra's the normal person here with a real job plus some rentals. Her decades of friendship with the group, from office flunkies to property gurus, might help keep us all humble and focused on learning something. I wouldn't count on it.
Well, today on Basement Tales, we could talk about the scheme of the week that Charlie identified, where you can bid on a property that's not actually for sale.
Yeah.
That sounds pretty good, but I'm a little concerned. Do you think that Sandra's renter murdered her? I know she's
That's
been
funny. That's funny, but it's not funny.
We could have an interesting basement tale next week. No, I mean, look, I like to have good basement tales, but not that involve the loss of one of our,
Right.
team members here.
Right.
That is always possible. So we'll have to let our listeners know next week that it's good news. I'm going to cross my fingers. But I'm sorry, Charlie. So how do I bid on a phantom property, or is the property not phantom?
No, I've got a classic story. So, as we all know, when a property goes to foreclosure, it has to be sold at the courthouse steps or a public style of auction, right? So whether it's a trust deed state like Virginia, California, or if it's a mortgage state, there has to be a public forum for an auction. Well, there was a particular property, and I'll say it's in Prince William County. I can't really give the street name, right? But it's in Woodbridge in Prince William County. And this property had been up for foreclosure probably 3 or 4 times, and it's been canceled. And I'll tell you why it's been canceled. And the reason why I know this is because I know the owner. Owner's an old friend of mine. And so this property had come up and down for foreclosure probably 4 or 5 times. And it is a property that's owned by a husband and wife. And the reason why it was canceled for auction is because they would take turns filing a bankruptcy.
The bankruptcy boogie.
Yeah, they were doing the bankruptcy boogie. Just like the ZZ Top song called the Tube Steak Boogie, but instead of tube steak, you just put bankruptcy. So you do the bankruptcy boogie. Well,
for you listeners, we've covered the bankruptcy boogie.
Yeah, we've covered the bankruptcy boogie in past podcasts. Well, in this particular case, the property is going back up for auction in a couple of weeks. Right. And I know this because I've been following this thing for 3 years in this case. And so I'm on a bunch of different auction websites, whether it's buying notes or buying houses, like REO websites or various different websites I'm on, and scouring the internet for either purchasing notes or purchasing these REO properties. Well, I got an email today from a particular company that I don't think I'm allowed to disclose. And they were actually, at what I thought, they were actually auctioning off this particular property. And so this was a property that I know wasn't an REO property. And so I assumed that the company was auctioning off the note because the property was coming up for sale at the courthouse steps in a couple of weeks. And I do know that the sale had been canceled 3 or 4 times due to multiple bankruptcy court filings. So I went onto the website and I emailed my point of contact because, of course, we have an account manager. And so I emailed him. I said, hey, I noticed that you're auctioning off a property that's due to end in a week. And I do know that the foreclosure auction is a week later. Are you auctioning off the note? because I figured, hell, they must be auctioning off the note because they don't own the property because the owner still owns the property. So they must be auctioning off the note. I didn't really understand what was going on. So I emailed them and I said, can you please clue me in on what's going on? Are you trying to sell the note? Well, I get the email back that says, no, we're not auctioning off the note. What we are auctioning off is the right to buy the property in case the property goes back to the lender at the foreclosure auction a week later. So if you are the high bidder of our auction that ends a week before the actual auction, and if the bank takes the property back, you can buy the house directly from the bank. And oh, by the way, we are going to take a 15% deposit from you before the auction, and we're going to keep your 15% deposit in case the bank ends up doing a full debt bid and taking the property back. Then once the bank owns the property, they'll sell you the property.
Okay, now you've officially confused me, which admittedly is not hard, particularly if there are money. So
right.
So let's put some meat on this, see if I'm understanding it.
That's right.
Let's say the property note is $200,000.
In this case, it's $250,000.
Okay, just round numbers. So the notes.
We'll get into the real numbers. It's $250,000.
Okay, so in the normal course, the bank would put it up for 250,000. Nobody bids on it. It goes back to the bank. Or if you're there and nobody else, you might bid $1 over and you get it.
Right.
Or it gets bid up to 350,000 at the auction and somebody gets it. So the scenario you're saying is, I get the right if the bank takes it back to get it at whatever. So maybe I bid 150 and that secret, well, not
Right.
secret, prior. All right, now I'm confused. Am I heading in the right direction?
Yes, but on the particular website, the bank is establishing the bid that you can buy it for in case they take it back. So the numbers are: the foreclosing deed of trust amount is $250. The property has an after repair value of $350. And oh, by the way, it's occupied. And it's occupied by the occupants who are doing the bankruptcy boogie. And so the initial bid on the website is $283,000. So you can bid $283,000 for the right to buy this property worth $350,000. That is occupied. And so there is a bid on that property for $283,000.
But that only matters if the property doesn't sell at auction.
That's right. Or if the property doesn't get canceled.
Oh, well, all right. So let's say the property gets canceled. Well, does that bid to the bank matter?
No, because then the money's going to have to get refunded back to the winner of the bid who bid for the right to buy the property if the property went back to the bank.
Right, because it didn't go to the bank because it didn't finish the auction.
Right.
What if at the auction it sells for 270 at the auction? The person that bid 283.
No, the bank is going to bid. Let's say somebody bids 283, or let's say it goes up to 290. The way I look at it, the bank's opening bid is going to be $290,000.
Right.
And so they're just trying to, what they're trying to do is take advantage of this marketplace where there's so many irrational, exuberant investors, right? And so they're totally taking advantage of this investor base. And oh, by the way, the auction for the right to buy the property in case it goes back to the bank, they are collecting a 10 to 15% deposit that week before the auction.
That they'll just sit on for a while. Yeah.
It seems like a strategy to jump in and help these banks out get higher yields without them having to market it through a retail real estate agent.
Well, no, it's brilliant. It's actually brilliant. It does.
Is that what we're looking at?
Yeah, but they're also charging like a 2% buyer's premium on top of that. So let's say it's $290,000. It's $290,000 plus 2%. So that's almost $6,000, right? It's 5,000, whatever the hell the number is. So they're charging a premium on top of that, not having to REO it and not having to have a listing agent list it. This is
not even really having to get it under control.
Yeah, this is a
not
genius.
Even having, yeah, it's a nice space to be. It's this narrow space. So they're going to try to jump in and short circuit REO business as REO business picks up when these foreclosures moratoriums end.
You got it. But at the same token, though, they're taking advantage of all these irrationally exuberant investors who are overbidding at the courthouse steps, which I think this model is actually pretty genius. But
Well, that brings us to a question that was raised by another person who called me today is, hey, why don't you talk about this market? Like, what in the world is going on with this lack of inventory? They said, well, can you talk to that? And so we could speak to that a bit.
yeah,
What's going on with the lack of inventory and how's that going to play out in the next 6 months?
Well, for you viewers out there, we are in the middle of a bubble. And I tell this to people all the time. We are in a bubble. And so the question is the bubble just rising? Is the bubble in the middle of its rise, or is the bubble at the top and it's getting ready to burst? And so we have a perfect storm out there as far as lack of inventory. We have no foreclosures going on at the courthouse steps, not none, but very, very limited. If the property is not vacant, then a government entity sponsored loan like Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, VA, FHA, and even USDA cannot foreclose because the foreclosure moratorium lasts until when? Is it June 30 or September 30? I forgot.
It just got at June 30, I think.
Yeah.
It just got it. Yeah.
So in the
maybe it's September. I'm sorry. I can't remember now.
It's June.
It's definitely June 30th, but in the stimulus package, did it move it to September 30th? We're not sure. But
no, they made an executive decision this week.
So we have the perfect storm. We have very limited foreclosure activity happening at any courthouse in the United States. We have lower interest rates, which means there's a ton of buyers out there, and people are scared to sell their house in the spring market because of COVID. So because of all three of those things, there is absolutely no inventory on the market. So if you're a buyer looking to buy a house, you're going to be competing with sometimes 5, 10, 20 different offers. So the inventory is not going to go up anytime soon. It's going to be.
You think that's everywhere, Charlie, or that it's now becoming segmented? Are you starting to see some neighborhoods slow down? Some product types slow down?
Yeah, some product types might be slowing down. Condos are probably slowing down, and properties in tougher neighborhoods are slowing down a little bit. At least that's in the DC area. I can't speak for all the other bigger cities, but the bigger cities are having inventory problems as well. I do know that.
Well, the other thing I've heard a lot of people talk about that is that if since 2007, 2008, there's been a significant underproduction of housing.
Oh, for sure.
Particularly at these interest rates, right? I remember it's not that long ago, saying, oh, new family foundations going down, not as people are getting married, not as many people are starting a house, they're scared, and I figured as soon as people were old enough or enough time had passed, you have enough people who are in their 20s and 30s who have very little or no recollection of the prior crash. And so I think that helps support the bubble. You have less people that are scared of it and more scared they're going to miss out. And this time I thought we were in a bubble a year ago.
Yeah, we did too. We thought we were in a bubble a year and a half ago, 2 years ago.
Right. But the thing is, the reason why it might not be a real bubble or the end of a bubble is because the supply of the stock is so low, interest rates are so low. Yep. And then with all of the stimulus, you end up, hopefully stabilizing things, and then new jobs, people have jobs and they're going to be out buying houses. So despite all the other problems that you have, you're still bringing a lot of people into the marketplace. All right, Charlie, so what's going to happen in 6 months?
The hope for new stock is limited. There's almost no hope for new stock because the cost of materials is so high.
Right.
There's no affordable new stock, I should say.
Well, not only that, but the county regulations and city regulations are moving things through so slow.
Right.
Taking these developers / builders a long time just to get their projects approved. You would think because of COVID and everybody working from home, this would be more of a streamlined approach, but it's just the opposite. It's taken them much longer to approve things. And so that's even slowing up.
Which drives up the cost significantly.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, Sandra's here. Sandra, we were terrified that your renter may have killed you and disposed of the body,
leaving you to be eaten by ants.
But then who would she call? She can't kill me.
She would call your husband.
She would call
Oh,
Ghostbusters.
so she's just killing me, not him too.
Mhm. Oh yeah, it's just one.
Well, isn't
No,
he like the plumber? I mean, he's been working as the plumber.
he's
You
the
know,
plumber, he's the exterminator, he's the landscaper, he's everything.
But you're
You
sending
said
the mean messages, and it's the lady who sends mean messages like you can leave anytime. You're putting yourself at risk. You're just watching TV quietly in your window. You can see outside a little bit, and then you see a shadow, and you're like, "Oh, I wonder who that is."
I'm just offering that up. Isn't that a good option? Like
but why-
if the ants are too much for you,
but why
if
did you
you're
say exterminator? You mean exterminating ants or something else?
exterminating ants.
Oh,
She's according to her, there are ants that are hanging like all off of the bed and the windows and the light fixtures. The ants are just everywhere. I'm like, I wouldn't want to live in a place like that. So if you want to move out, you are welcome to just
the
at
ants
any
go
point.
marching in. Da, 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 da,
You
da.
can leave whenever you want. That's what I offered up. That's all I'm saying.
that doesn't
sound-
sound like red carpet service, but
No, that sounds like Chucky Eidsman service right there.
I am not the red carpet landlord.
We got Dr. Joe. We
Although
need
I
Dr.
feel
Joe
like
back.
it. Jeez.
We need Dr. Joe back to give you some insights.
Yeah, because no one who's a red carpet landlord feels like one. They do it out of courtesy and respect for their tenant, not this resentment.
yeah.
Ants.
We do it. We come over there and we fix things. Last week we had a landscaper out there putting in rhododendrons and azaleas and leveling out the backyard.
Oh,
and
you got the
backfill.
lumps out. You got the lumps out.
We got the lumps out. We do what we need to do. It's just
Sandra, I just want to tell you something. We own a property in Burke on Dahlgren that how long we owned it, Sam? 10 plus years?
Oh yeah.
I have yet to see the property one time.
wow.
He's a great tenant. The guy's living in there. He's the nicest guy. He is was a taxi driver, and he was later became an Uber driver. He'll take you to the airport, whatever. He refuses to take your money. But the one risk with him is, and I'm so glad that he's not listening to this. He's the worst driver there ever is. It is so scary to ride in his vehicle.
Why are you in his vehicle?
Well, because if I have an early flight or something, I'll get him to come over and give me a ride because I don't want everyone to know that I'm not home. So I know he's cool. So he'll come over and give me a ride. He'll come over at 6 a.m, whatever. He's the nicest man in the world. But you got to live through the ride.
Oh my God.
But I've got a little tale to tell. So we're not going to mention names like Charlie said and Ed said, but I went out to a property that we took back on Saturday. And this was in a place called Bryan's Road, Maryland. And if you know Bryan's Road, it's between, let's say, the MGM and Indian Head. So it's got a huge, very much a changing demographic in that area. There's a lot of people moving out of there from the city and trying to get more space. And these folks were nice people in the world, bought 2 houses, renovated one, sold it, renovated started the renovation of another and failed. They had some stuff come up in their family. It never became quite clear. We were more than straight with them. And then they said, look, we'll just give it back to you. I said, okay, I'll come out and get the keys on Saturday. Go out and get the keys. They're 45 minutes late. I'm like, where you been? Like, well, we had some police activity last night. I said, is that right? And they said, yeah. So we're at home. It's 3 a.m. and we've got a 4-wheeler outside and out back, and they have a large parcel of land they're living on. And a prowler is in the yard. So, they were upset because they had previously lost a bicycle in the yard. So they have a lot of weapons. They went outside with an AR-15, a riot shotgun, a 9mm, and a couple other weapons. It's a whole family of folks, and just set up and just laid down fire steady across the whole yard. Couldn't even see the guy where the person was hiding. Then they got in their truck with their lamps and went out looking for him. Well, by the time the police, and then they thought that they were getting return fire. It turned out to be their cousin who lived across the street was laying down a little bit of fire. So they had a lot going on. The police come. They said, you can't have like a 12-inch no trespassing sign and then hunt people on your property. And so it was like a late all night event for them. So they're late to our meeting. Okay, step one. So they show up late.
I don't even understand what you're saying. So they could have killed
They were
someone
hunting
in
a
the
guy.
yard. Just
They were hunting a guy in their yard. You're not
That's
allowed to
right.
hunt people.
no, you're not allowed to kill people.
Yeah,
That's
the police
illegal.
had to let them know.
Right,
Yeah,
Ed?
That's not what I learned from the island of Dr. Moreau.
the
I'm not a
police
lawyer.
told him you can't kill someone who's not a threat to you. It's at least in Maryland.
And then what time
So-
was your meeting with them?
Oh, 10 a.m.
Oh, okay, 10
9 a.m. 9 a.m.
9 a.m. Of course.
Yeah, yeah.
During the
they were
week.
running
During the
late.
week, right? Was it a weekend?
Saturday.
Oh, it's Saturday. Okay, this is Friday night. Okay,
Yeah, so it was a Friday night.
Friday night
Shootout.
lights. Okay.
Friday Night Lights. Okay, good enough. They've signed everything over. We get the property. We send the guys out to work on it. They had told me in advance, hey, I want to get some tools out of it. I've got a lockbox on it. I said, no problem. Just get your stuff, whatever. Right. So they surrender the property to us. We transferred. It cost us like $9,000 in their back taxes and transfer fees. We pay it all. We get the we don't charge them any of their delinquency. And then he calls me back yesterday, just screaming his head off that he has some tools missing.
Oh,
Like, tools missing? Like, you just gave us the house. Like, you could get your own tools. And he said, oh, I'm missing this. I'm missing a shower head. I'm missing that. I was like, I don't know.
but
Well,
wait a minute. Were there tools in the house when you guys
The
were in
house was not
at
in a clean
at your
state. There-
9:45 meeting? That was really 9 o'clock. It turned into 9:45.
Yeah, there was a lot of stuff. I didn't inventory it. There's
Oh.
materials, there's junk, there's holes in the floor, there's stuff that's undone. It's impossible to determine what, he was looking for, like a little pump thing and a jackhammer.
Did he leave
this
us?
and that.
Did he leave us some gold?
Definitely not.
He didn't find the
Definitely.
gold.
Found a lot of water, jackhammered up the floor to find that there's all these water leaks.
Oh, great.
But
No gold.
so that's a tale at the end.
But the beautiful thing, though, is that they at least finally agreed to do a deed in lieu of foreclosure to save us like 60 days of finally bringing it to auction, and then another 90 days of having it judicially approved. So, I mean, they saved us 150 days. And the funny thing about it is they were actually really good clients.
Yeah, they were totally nice.
And they referred us, a few deals. And then, matter of fact, they referred us a deal that same day before they did the deed in lieu of foreclosure. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think they'd come back to us with additional deals.
Yeah.
But just have to watch every deal.
Sam, just stop taking tools. I don't know why the heck.
Oh, yeah.
Take tools.
Yeah.
That's what you're using the tools for. But hey,
Yeah.
I think they would be the last people I would steal any tools from.
Especially after the shootout thing.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Well, the shootout, the Friday night shootout.
Yeah, no way.
Oh, that's funny.
Well, that's the tale.
Yeah. Yeah.
That wasn't this week, was it?
Yeah, it was Saturday.
It's Saturday.
Saturday and Monday.
It's 3-4 days ago. Yeah.
I thought we were supposed to encourage people how great real estate investing can be. I'm not, oh no, we're supposed to educate people on the truth. So I guess that
Well, I
I've
mean,
never heard of such a thing. That's
Yeah,
a truth
I
that
mean,
hopefully
that's
you'll never
sweet.
hear about if you're like a beginning investor. You
Yeah,
know, you
lot-
need to
lot
be
of
around for
truths.
25 years like these guys to get to that point.
I hope. But you've had pretty good tales over there, Sandra. There's
Why?
an old curse that says, may you live in interesting times. So the more boring it is in real estate, the better. If the checks show up and you once in a while you have to send out a handyman or your husband as the plumber or whatever it is,
exterminator.
it seems easy. People are like, wow, how do you do that? It seems so easy. And then you get Sam.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fun.
Stealing tools. Stealing tools.
Then you
There
feel
you go.
good. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I know he didn't steal the tools because I've never seen Sam do a day of physical anything
Yeah, that's a good point.
in his life.
Mhm. I've heard that even most recently from someone I love said to me that I never trained them in any way to do anything physical. And I'm like, what are you talking about?
I'm trying to figure out who that might be. That could be either one of them.
It could be. It could
It's either D
be.
or G.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I learned how to do all sorts of renovation stuff. I used to work for a guy who sold pianos, and he was so cheap he'd have me putting in insulation in his building and doing all sorts. I know how to do that stuff, but I kind of can't now. So There's that.
Well, one of my kids' first initial C. They both have initial of C, by the way. About 3 or 4 years ago, he looked up on YouTube how to put air in his tire.
That's the good thing about YouTube, though. Like back in our day, you had to go find somebody to teach you these things.
And you don't want to ask someone how to put air in your tire. I mean, there's a point you got to stop questions.
Yeah, because obviously his dad didn't teach him to do that.
Oh.
And who is this dad, Charlie?
Yeah, me. No
Start
C.
with a C?
Yeah, another C. That's pretty funny.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my kids are always telling me, you didn't teach me that. I'm like, God, I forgot that we have to teach you all everything.
Yeah.
You come knowing nothing. So,
No, that's true.
I'm trying to think how I learned how to put air in a car, do some of this stuff. It wasn't the encyclopedia. And my father was not a physical kind of guy, like doing that sort of stuff. I don't know how we learned things without YouTube back in the day.
God, I had a bunch of mechanic friends, and so believe it or not, you guys are gonna laugh. I had this big old heavy Chevy station wagon, and of course, I knew how to change tires. I knew how to change the oil. I even knew how to change, obviously, the air filter. That was easy, but I even knew how to change an alternator. So I've changed a couple of alternators back in my day.
There you go.
Believe it or not. I mean, these are back in the days where you know, we weren't bringing our cars into Jiffy Lube or whatever and getting killed with all that expensiveness. We were just going to the local, at our time, it was called Track Auto, and we were buying the oil and buying the oil filter, and we were doing it ourselves.
Well, knowing that is going to be like knowing how to make a buggy whip, given that the electric cars don't have alternators or oil. So you're showing your age. But as long as we can figure out how to do plumbing, you know.
Oh yeah, we can keep Sandra's properties running.
That's
plumbing and exterminating. At least it's
I'm
not
waiting for
roaches,
some
it's
framing.
ants.
You know, my husband and I framed the basement of our house out in Bowie. We both thought we were crazy. I don't know why
It was a big home. It was a lot of framing.
There was a big home.
remember that
a lot of framing, and I don't know. It was me. It definitely wasn't him. He was like, "Are you crazy?" So we went to Home Depot, and I read some books on framing, and estimated how many 2x4s to have delivered to the house, and they came, and we had no idea what we were doing.
Did you drywall?
It looked nice in the end.
Did you drywall it too, or just frame it?
No, we tried, and we just realized that that's a real art. You have to bring in an expert. Those guys came in and did it in like a couple of hours. We would have been fighting for weeks.
Well, this actually all relates back to Basement Tales, probably completely by accident, but this is an important thing to learn when you're going and pricing a home or buying a home to buy as a rental. Is you get a bunch of idiots like us who probably did repairs and put in framing and tried to do plumbing, and you want to take a look at these properties. You can kind of just tell by looking that things don't look quite professional, but there can be a lot going on behind the walls, or somebody put on some illegal addition or something like that. You can get yourself in some problems. I know, Sam, you guys loaned to somebody. And I distinctly remember you sending me a picture of a toilet sitting in a bathroom, and there was no plumbing stubs coming out of the wall and no waste pipes. They had just closed it all in. They just set as if it were just a toilet sitting there. You can get some weird things.
Yeah, some really strange stuff.
Yeah.
I did not do that, Ed. No toilet sitting in the middle of the basement.
But use your framing at that old place,
I had levels. I bought the right, tools. I bought all the right tools.
I bet Ed could depose
the
you.
Tile floor is a little off. The tile floor ended up being, I'm like, oh, you really have to pay attention to, squaring things up. So it kind of went off to the right a little bit there.
Well, I think in a deposition, we could get to more facts. Sandra.
No, we didn't go any further than we knew our limits, or I got afraid and I said, no, we can't do any more than this. It ended up not being bad, but just the framing. That was it.
Well, and the good news is the regular contractors screw it up. You remember that we came across a contractor who was in some trouble in DC, and we saw one of their projects, and the joist or the beam of this on the ceiling, you have a horizontal beam. It's supposed to sit on a vertical beam. This is not so complicated, but they kind of missed the horizontal beam just ended in drywall,
No connection.
about 6 inches or a foot away from the vertical beam, right, Sam?
Yeah, no connection.
No, I'm not sure you do a thing like that, but you definitely want to be on the look. I think we saw that because somebody else was suing the contractor, some such. But yeah, even when you think it should be done right, maybe you're better off with Sandra's framing. Now I think about it,
Could be from some of the stuff we've seen.
I charge by the hour.
Yeah.
Charge by the hour. Yep.
At least you try. I've some contractors or some people don't even really try. It seems like so.
So Ed, what can you do? So for our house here, we did major renovation when we moved in. We had a terrible contractor who we ended up having to fire probably about 2/3 of the way through the work, and we tried to get money back from him. Of course, it was gone. We did wait until he did most of the work before he was going to ask for another draw, and we were like, no, you need to finish what you're doing, because we knew we weren't going to keep him on. So he did a lot of the work. So we didn't lose as much as we, probably could have lost if we had given him money earlier. But how do you get out of, or how do you move on from, Sam, Charlie, a bad contractor situation?
Yeah, it's an absolute challenge, right? First of all, the first thing you identified is you don't know what the best day is to fire a bad contractor. It's really the first day, but you can't
before
go back
hiring
in time,
yeah.
right?
Before you give them money.
So when you're in the middle of it with a bad contractor, the switching cost is extremely high. Nobody wants to come behind them. They're going to leave with wherever you say, "Hey, I don't like you anymore." They're never going to come back, and you're never going to easily you're not going to make an easy recovery of your money. So it is a tough one, right? So you did about as good as you can do. If you can get out and finish the project, you have some economic loss, but you can get done. Just call it a day. And then this happens all the time. If you don't vet your contractor, or the contractor takes on, if you do vet them and they take on too many projects for themselves, they can go ahead and leave you hanging if you're not one of their regular clients that fills their queue all the time. So it can happen to anyone, even after you've done some amount of research into a person's quality and deliverables.
Well, it's like the old possession is 9/10 of the law. Clearly, Sandra did the right thing by having a draw schedule, right? Whatever you do, say it's $100,000 in work. For God's sakes, don't give them $100,000. You may not see them after you send that over. So Sandra did the smart thing, which is to have a draw schedule. And it doesn't have to be super complicated. You get X amount or X percent after the demolition. Then you got to get the materials on site. You got to, once the studs are up, once the plumbing is, you can break it down as much as is reasonable. So at any given point, maybe you're only out $10,000 if they flake out.
That's it, yeah.
100,000. Because the reality is, unfortunately, lawyers are too expensive. Sandra's preferred $4.99 flat fee lawyer
won't fix that.
Is not going to fix it. And you'll say that the contractor owes you $5,000. Well, you're better off usually, not always. I mean, there's small claims court. There's, turning them into the regulators or DCRA or whatever. But you may just be best to walk away and try to work it out with them as best you can. And okay, you've tossed $5,000. Well, that's not so bad, because 10, 15 hours of a halfway decent lawyer is going to eat 5,000. And as you guys know, they call it the American rule. You can't get your attorney's fees back typically. So you sue them, you spend $5,000 suing them, and they owe you $5,000, and you win. Well, that you get zero. It all goes to the lawyer, which, is not a bad structure as far as I'm concerned, but that's my profession. So yeah, it's trust. Trust but verify, and do draw schedules. And I don't know if I can fix much more than that, right?
And in the contract, I don't know if this is legal or not, but I made sure I put a clause in there that said that we could get out of it in case of, financial hardship.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I put a financial hardship clause in there. Don't know why.
Financial hardship on the contractor themselves?
No, on us.
Oh.
On homeowners. Like if we can't continue to pay you, we're not going to be stuck. I don't know if that's a thing or not, but it just felt right at the time. But
Well, it depends on your circumstance and at the time. And generally speaking, contracts are not really a mysterious thing or a mysterious legal thing. You have an offer and an acceptance, and that's it. And the offer is I'll give you X dollars for you to do Y things. Well, you can write up just about anything you want, including the term you mentioned that, all right, we're going to have you in and spend $100,000 on this project, but if something changes in our finances, we can leave at any draw level or whatever,
right.
or any point in the project, and they might push back a little bit, but if you make it so that they're going to be made whole up to the point of you leaving out, why not?
Yeah.
And the other thing I always tell people about contracts, and because we're always speaking here on an educational basis, I'm a contract lawyer by training, by experience. I write contracts, I've litigated contracts of every size, shape, and description. And to me, the single best thing about a contract is to set expectations for the reasons we sort of talked about before. Okay, you could sue them for breaking the contract, and they could sue you for breaking the contract. But if it lays out the expectations, I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, and 4, and you're going to give me, $5,000. That's pretty clear. If there can always be some ambiguity, but if you just say, here's $50,000 to build an addition, well, what does that mean? What size addition, and what was the siding supposed to be? So the more you just spell out, and even in bullet points, at least everybody can go back and say, oh yeah, I forgot about that. I did say I was going to supply the faucets or whatever it is, and that was our agreement. And because people forget, they might forget. In your case, they agreed to a couple of things they don't usually agree to. Right. And then everybody gets angry and they have different recollections. At the end of the day, if you have to sue based on the contract, you're not in a good place.
Right.
It's not.
Yeah, it'll never work. I mean,
who is you? You the homeowner, or you the
homeowner, the flipper, anybody?
Actually, both sides.
We've probably terminated, I'd say 6 contractors, because we're always, looking for a new contractor to add so we can scale up. And so it's trial and error. A lot of people they do great on the first project, fail the next, get over their head, have to make this, that, and the other. And we've moved on from a lot of them and had our regular guys go in behind them and finish it. And we always get a little extra charge for that because they have to go undo anything they didn't see done.
To their that's what's going on with Brian's Road story, is that we've got our contractor going in, following up on somebody else's work, and they hate that, but then they're going to pass the cost on to us.
Yeah, and I mean, immediately we get there and they've done, they've created some problems. They pulled permits for the first floor and not for the basement, but then they modified the basement. So now we got to figure that out. I mean, there's a lot of stuff when you come behind somebody.
Unmess it up.
Yeah, unmess it up.
You were thinking, all right, you were thinking of a curse word there. I think are we marked explicit on a podcast? So I know Sandra won't let us curse, but I think you could un-F it maybe. Is that what you were thinking? Yeah.
And when you're un-effing it, I mean, you're just never going to get back to suing that first contractor. You just got to move forward.
Right.
And actually, we had another guy we tried out most recently up on Rock in Waldorf, and we had to move on from him in the middle. Well, right at the end, he said he was done, but he really wasn't done. And I just said, you know what, we'll finish, because you can't. I can't come out here 6 times over like one washing machine. We just got to get someone in here who's going to take care of us.
Well, what's crazy about that is you're a guy who hires contractors all the time. I mean, and they know that, and they know they can get repeat business, and you still have contractors who fail. And, and sometimes things happen beyond their control, I suppose, like COVID or whatever.
Sure.
You do have that, but you would think if anybody's going to get good service, it would be you, who might use them again and tell your other, flipping friends or flippers who borrow from you.
That's right.
So it's kind of scary, actually, how hard it is to get. Now, of course, you've got a couple guys that you can just do a handshake, going back to that contract thing.
Yeah.
So then, you want that fixed? That'll be $10,000. You're like, okay.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
they'll do it. And if
But that's after $1 million in work. Yeah.
Yeah, highly recommend having that relationship if you can develop it. But it's been years and years that you've worked on
That's
that.
right.
Well, these guys tried to, they wanted to sue because I was breaking the contract. I ended up saying that, I lost my job, which I hadn't really, but he didn't know that. So, because I wanted him out, and he was very upset about it, and he brought his cousin lawyer to the house. And I think at the time, Sam had just happened to come by the house. And he was like, "You brought your lawyer?" And I'm like, "You know what? I had to do what I had to do." So Sam came in there looking very lawyer-like. You probably had a suit on at the time, not your usual look. Not like you've been looking recently. This was back when you cared. So Sam came in there looking like a lawyer. Yeah, he scared the guy.
Okay, Sam.
I don't think I can even picture Sam with a suit on. So
That's pretty
I'm
funny.
not sure I buy that. But
Sam had on a suit that day. He
Yeah,
just happened to be there. The guy thought he was the lawyer.
He certainly didn't have his COVID hairdo.
Definitely not. Definitely not.
yeah,
That's pretty funny. That's pretty funny. I remember.
Yeah,
that.
his cousin was like, "Well, it's right here." So the cousin sided with me and said, "Yeah, there's nothing you can do.
We gotta go.
Yeah, you gotta go."
yeah. Well, I guess that is true. You can get the father or brother or son or daughter who's the lawyer, and then on the other side, and they may figure they can low cost beat you up. But the free father, son, daughter lawyer is not really going to want to mess with that.
They're not going to the mat for you.
They're not getting paid. It's like when you tell someone, "Hey, come over and fix my computer for me." You don't get a lot of
They hook up your printer and then it doesn't work, and it's like, sorry, must not be compatible.
I say this because I'm Sam's Apple genius, but we have that long friendship, so I'll do that for him.
Called the Genius Bar.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Another day of Basement Tales. Thank you.
Yeah.
Like us.
Subscribe.
And send in your basement tales that you want us to talk about.
Send them to yourstory@basementtales.com.